A new era of governance is here, predicted by those who govern themselves and to the dismay of those who lacked foresight. Risk management has become a necessity in ensuring that companies don't just stay afloat, but operate and adapt, knowing that any crisis would allow them to transform and not affect their sustainability. Around the world, businesses have taken into consideration the environmental, social, and governance principles as a critical consideration into their strategies. But the outliers outweigh the flexible, and this is no different in our own continent. Having the most diverse population, rich in natural resources, and exporting million tons of precious metals and commodities per year, it's time that Africa takes the forefront in leading the world in a new level of prosperity. However, many issues still persist on our continent, including poverty, crime, gender-based violence, corruption, the mismanagement of precious resources, and low corporate governance. As Africans, we need to recognize the value our continent can provide and evolve our business practices not just for wealth, but for the prosperity of societies and generations to come. Now, we have the tool that is built by Africans for Africa and the globe.
So the ESG GPS model is not just a one-size-fits-all. We want companies not just to go from good to great, but to be built to last. That's all about sustainability.
And has already started shaping companies to become inclusive of the ESG landscape in South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, and Mauritius. And now, we look to Ghana and Botswana to continue and progress Africa's drive towards sustainability and move Africa towards global alignment to net zero. This is the launch of ESG GPS, Ghana and Botswana.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to the launch of ESG GPS Botswana and Ghana, as Risk Insights continues its journey in scaling our AI-powered ESG GPS rating disclosure tool to more countries on our green continent. So today, Ghana and Botswana will officially join the club of the countries where Risk Insights rates ESG disclosure of 100% of companies listed at the respective exchanges, following Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Mauritius, launched earlier. Besides our AI-powered revolutionary lineup of ESG GPS products for listed companies, we're very proud to provide companies in Botswana and Ghana with A-Cubed, ESG rating tool for private companies. I'm Andrei Bogdanov, CEO of Risk Insights, and thank you for joining me at this launch for Botswana and Ghana. We have a superb lineup of keynote addresses for today's event. We have thought leaders from Africa, Europe, and Americas, and participants joining us from all across the globe. Please do not hesitate to send any and all questions to info@riskinsights.co.za, and we'll get back to you. Without any further delay, let me please introduce our opening keynote address, Dr. Ndidi Edozian. Ndidi is a board member of the ISSB, which is part of IFRS Foundation. I'm sure we all would like to know more about recently announced S1 and S2 IFRS standards, which created a new era in the ESG disclosure requirements, as these are specifically designed to enable companies to communicate to investors sustainability-related risks and opportunities. Please join me in welcoming Ndidi. Ndidi, floor is yours.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Ndidi Edozian. I'm a member of the International Sustainability Standards Board of the IFRS Foundation. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. You probably already know that the IFRS Foundation was founded on the belief that better information supports better economic and investment decisions. As a result of that, we have been working over the last 18 months to develop high-quality global standards that will result in corporate information to inform better investment decisions. As such, it was our great pleasure on the 26th of June to launch the first two international sustainability standards, which we call IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. The objective of these standards was to create a common language for disclosing the effect of sustainability and climate-related risks and opportunities on a company's prospects. These standards were launched in Frankfurt, Johannesburg, London, Lagos, New York, Santiago, and Singapore. And they are designed to enable companies communicate to investors about the sustainability-related risks and opportunities they face in the short, medium, and long term. Specifically, the overall set of disclosure requirements are outlined by IFRS S1, which are the general sustainability disclosure requirements, while IFRS S2 sets out specific climate-related disclosures. Both of these fully incorporate the recommendations of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, the 4 pillars, which are governance, strategy, risks and opportunities, as well as targets and metrics. And of course, there's no need to say that when you talk about targets and metrics, data and data integrity is absolutely key. The standards were developed with the benefit of extensive market feedback. We responded to the calls from the G20, the Financial Stability Board, and the International Organization of Securities Commissions, the IOSCO, as well, of course, extensive feedback from leaders in the business and investor community. The support that we received from all of these stakeholders resulted in a comprehensive global baseline of sustainability-related disclosures, demonstrating the widespread demand for consistent understanding of how sustainability factors impact and affect companies' prospects. Our standards can be used in conjunction with any accounting requirements. What's very important is to state that they underpin also the IFRS accounting standards, which are already required by more than 140 jurisdictions. And as such, we believe that they are suitable for application, and they are indeed built for application around the world, significantly embedding proportionality requirements and creating thereby a truly global baseline. Of course, included in the standards are specific transitional reliefs, and those transitional reliefs also take into cognizance the needs of smaller entities and all jurisdictions across the world, so that we consider, for example, the skills, capabilities, and resources that are available to reporting entities. And this is what we refer to as the proportionality that has been built in. Now that the standards are issued, the ISSB will work with jurisdictions and companies to support adoption. One of the first steps we will take is create a transition implementation group that builds in and supports companies that are applying the standards. And we will also be launching capacity building initiatives to support effective implementation. Thus, we have built, after 18 months, standards that are designed to help companies tell their sustainability story in a robust, comparable, and verifiable manner. What's very important is that sustainability factors are becoming mainstream to investment decision-making. What we have lacked so far is comparability, and there has also been a certain level of confusion about the ESG alphabet soup of initiatives. The outcome of this has meant that capital markets were not working as efficiently as they could. As a result of the fact that our standards are assurable and enforceable, and designed to elicit decision-useful information connected to financial statements, we believe that the standards deliver a global baseline that is proportionate and that enable companies to deliver decision-useful, consistent, and comparable information to investors globally. We also believe that these standards help companies communicate in a cost-effective and assurable way. What's also an important indicator among these is that we will deliver efficiency in the disclosure landscape. So bearing in mind that IFRS S1 and IFRS S2 build on and consolidate pre-existing initiatives. Some of these are TCFD, which I've already mentioned, the CDSB, the SASB industry metrics, and integrated reporting. The standards also borrow well-known concepts from and provide connectivity to the financial accounting standards. One significant factor to consider is that the definition of material information is aligned with that used by the IFRS accounting standards. So to accountants and CFOs out there, it will be very familiar language. We're also focused on simplifying the landscape further through interoperability with jurisdictional requirements and the GRI standards, for example, to reduce duplicative reporting. Likewise, We have continued and will continue to listen to stakeholders. Because we were established out of public demand from international policymakers, investors, companies, and other stakeholders, we will continue to listen throughout the development of the IFRS standards, starting with S1 and S2, which we have just completed, but also future standards where we have recently issued the request for information. More information about that can be found on the website. Most importantly, and to conclude, we will be working with you who are applying these standards and adopting these standards through capacity building, support, guidance, education, and training. We have a range of partners that we launched at COP27, 30-day one-star partners with whom we'll be working to deliver capacity building around the world. Why should you apply the standards? Why should African companies in particular consider these standards? Well, first of all, it reduces complexity by reducing the alphabet soup of current ESG reporting. Secondly, it helps companies streamline their sustainability reporting processes, ensuring that they're providing decision-useful information that helps investors make better investment decisions. Lastly, it enables greater transparency for information, resulting in improved access to capital, governance, and strategy for companies. What we believe is that with better disclosures and better information, especially for the African continent, this has the potential to unlock capital flows, which are much needed. Very important in the launch today is the use of better data quality as a core part of the information, so a core part of providing higher quality information from companies, also companies in the value chain of a reporting company. What we believe is that improved data quality is expected to have a positive effect also on governance, strategy, access to capital, costs of capital, reputation, and employee and stakeholder engagement. I'm aware that Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Mauritius are already on board. And it's great news that actually in 2 of the countries that have been mentioned, namely Ghana and Nigeria, the ISSP standards have already been adopted by those jurisdictions and will be mainstreamed. It's my sincere hope that as we continue on this journey towards better disclosures and better information, that this initiative that you're launching today in Ghana and Botswana will be a significant milestone in terms of ensuring better information that leads to better information and decision-making by investors to unlock capital flows to your capital markets. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Coming up next, we have Anushka Bogdanov, the founder of Risk Insights.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to share the spotlight with a galaxy of such well-known keynotes for the launch of ESG GPS, Ghana and Botswana. Thank you to Risk Insights for giving me the honor to address you today, and congratulations to Andre and his team for scaling the ESG GPS disclosure tool into Ghana and Botswana. Let me begin by thanking everyone and the universe for the unconditional support and strength during my medical sabbatical. I'm on a positive trajectory towards a strong recovery and a few more months of rehabilitation. Who cares wins? The famous quote from Freshfield Report in 2005, when ESG issues were seen to have a material impact on financial performance of companies. Since then, ESG has gained enormous momentum across the globe. ESG and sustainability are interchangeably some of the most fed and read news feeds across the world. One of the key strategic risks that ESG aims to address is that of leadership. Our world is going through immense risk arising from climate change, social challenges, and only it can be addressed if we lead with purpose. The environmental risks that we face if we don't reduce our carbon footprint will lead to social anarchy. Food and water security through climate change will create social risks that must be taken seriously. Leadership will need to go beyond compliance to embrace ESG to ensure that we are all accountable to correct the current rules of capitalism for a more inclusive society towards stakeholder capitalism. creating inclusivity for all, irrespective of race, gender, sex, color, religion, to ensure products that we offer to society will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, are morally and ethically produced to reduce any negative impact on our environment will be key to this era of leadership. The ESG GPS disclosure tool by Risk Insights is great for Africa. Why and what does ESG mean for the African continent? So the African continent has many social challenges, but for the first time in the world, as the world faces environmental risk due to greenhouse gas emissions, we in Africa have the lowest risk and the lowest footprint in carbon emissions. Less than 4% of the world's emissions come from Africa. This can be the first time in the history of the world that Africa can lead environmental transformation to creating circular economies to improve social challenges, thereby attracting impact investments. This means our corporations by default will have lower emissions than many across the globe, and it is our leadership through governance that will need to disclose ESG information so that Africa can attract impact capital to build circular economies to keep emissions low. However, the challenge still persists for Africa, which is poor governance due to corruption, which needs to improve. I challenge African companies to disclose and use the first ESG disclosure tool pioneered using AI and machine learning for Africa by Africans to improve ESG disclosure and data for Africa. Once again, congratulations to the Risk Insights team for producing and creating a tool that is for Africa and takes us into account. Thank you very much.
Coming up next, we have Alan Sekombe, a retired partner at PwC and the Risk Insights IRC Chair, Ghana.
I'm very proud to be the Independent Review Chair for Ghana. My role is to provide an external review of the Risk Insights environmental, social and governance ratings for Ghana-listed entities to ensure accuracy and consistency, allowing the stakeholders in those companies to be able to assess their ESG compliance against that of their peers and competitors. As Anushka mentioned, ESG is a rapidly growing concept around the world, based on the need for more balanced institutional and business operations, leading to the incorporation of ESG concerns in carrying out business activities. Regulators, policymakers, government and organisations have become vocal and more proactive on these concerns. Companies have become increasingly aware of the need to ensure that the ESG expectations of their stakeholders are met. The G part of ESG has been around for some time. Most listed companies will have significant internal processes that seek to make sure that the company operates in a way to safeguard its business and operations and govern the way in which the board of directors and other responsible persons act to protect and enhance shareholder value. Most countries have legislation that set out standards expected and prescribe applicable sanctions for breaches thereof. My interest in ESG lies in the E and the S. My background as a research biologist and a continued interest and involvement in environmental matters has allowed me to be able to see firsthand the negative impact on business activities on the environment. Having practiced as a tax professional for the last 30 years, the recently announced changes to international tax laws which seek to allocate taxing rights to countries where the activities are undertaken, as opposed to, say, tax havens, speaks to the newly found S factor amongst the tax community. It makes sense that profits derived from labour and natural resources of countries should be used to support and uplift the citizens of those countries, as opposed to enriching the companies and their stakeholders. Taxation also plays a role in the e-space as well, with carbon, plastic and other taxes seeking to curb unfriendly environmental practices. There are, of course, those that are opposed to the current ESG movement. Some analysts say that ESG results in a misdirection of capital, giving rise to lower investment returns as companies move away from customer needs towards other priorities. However, this might be countered by saying that it is this investor greed that has necessitated ESG, and that the world should focus on long-term sustainability and protection of the planet for our children and our children's children, rather than over-exploiting now for the short-term gain of a few. Let us not forget that the outcome of positive ESG behaviour is to extend the life of the planet by exploiting the resources in a sustainable way and allowing countries and stakeholders alike to benefit. So where is Ghana in the ESG space? The Ghanaian president has approved Ghana's updated nationally determined contributions, known as NDCs, as negotiated at the COP26 summit in Glasgow. The NDCs are some 47 adaptation and mitigation measures on climate change and embodies efforts by countries to reduce national emissions and adapt to the impacts of the climate change. The NDCs are seeking to advance climate-responsive food production systems, lowering of deforestation, landscape restoration, and to scale up renewable and sustainable energy transition to promote clean electric mobility and mobilize investment into climate actions. Dr. Kokofu, the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, has committed to the implementation of the adaptation and mitigation measures to help keep the temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees. These adaptations will generate absolute greenhouse gas emission reductions of some 64 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. However, Ghana already is facing the impact of climate change and requires between 9.3 and 15.5 billion US dollars of investment to implement climate interventions from 2020 to 2030 to build resilience for the protection of vulnerable communities and ecosystems. It is encouraging to note that Ghana's emerging economy is driven by a power generation mix of nearly 39% hydroelectric and 0.5% solar. That is nearly 40% of power generated by low carbon means, a result that many developed companies can only dream of achieving. Ghanaian financial institutions began their journey into promoting a sustainable economy through sustainable banking in 2019, with the establishment of Ghana Sustainable Banking Principles. The Ghana Stock Exchange, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that later, in collaboration with its partners, launched the ESG Disclosure Guidance Manual in November 2022. The introduction to the manual states that it guides how listed companies in Ghana and other organizations interested in ESG can collect, analyze, and publicly disclose important ESG information using an approach that meets international standards in sustainability reporting. Clearly, ESG development in Ghana is gaining irresistible momentum, thereby defining the changes business and various organizations will have to make going forward. Establishment of the risk insights ratings for Ghanaian listed companies is further evidence of the progress that Ghana and its corporate citizens are making towards the ESG agenda. I hope that you enjoy the rest of this session, and I look forward to interacting with you further shortly.
Next up, we have Abubaida Shabat, Deputy CEO and Head of Data Science Lab at Risk Insights.
Good morning, everyone, and it is my pleasure to be with you this morning. I am Dr. Abubaida Shabat, the Deputy CEO of Risk Insight. I am going to take you through the ESG GPS disclosure rating tool, and thereafter I will show you some insight on the Ghanaian companies. Later on, my colleague Kunal Kalyan will provide you with the state of the disclosure of companies in Botswana. ESG is a complex subject that is still evolving in the world of regulators, capital markets, asset managers, and banks in the reporting sphere. Together, we are striving to establish a standardized ESG and stewardship for companies to disclose non-financial data more transparently to all stakeholders. ESG presents a complex challenge of converting non-financial and unstructured data into structured information that can profoundly impact a company's long-term performance and reputation. Most integrated and sustainability reports primarily consist of narrative with the minimum quantitative and measurable data. However, it is crucial to extract valuable information from this report and translate it effectively. Additionally, this data is available in various formats, including PDFs, web pages, news articles, images, etc. Risk Insight has pioneered the ESG GPS model to synthesize and unstructured data from integrated report, website, and all mandatory, voluntary, and public sources using natural language processing and artificial intelligence algorithm. By employing advanced techniques like TF-IDF and computer engineering algorithms, we have developed a robust algorithm that can transform these diverse data into a structured format. Our ESG GPS model allows us to navigate through the complexity of ESG data, providing valuable insight and enabling informed decision-making and strategy setting. With this tool, we can analyze and interpret ESG information more efficiently and effectively, contributing to a sustainable future for business in Africa and, of course, Ghana and Botswana. This is the first ESG rating tool built for Africa by Africans. ESG GPS has collected and curated information on listed companies from Ghana and Botswana, specifically focusing on their ESG practices and reporting. This comprehensive dataset provides a meaningful ESG data of each company relative to its peer group and relative to its country. Our rating methodology takes into account best practices and materiality variables within the ESG, while also considering the financial performance of the company over a significant period of time. This holistic approach allows us to assess how effectively an organization acts as a steward of its physical environment, including its responsible use of natural resources and natural capital. So, let me get to it and provide you with the insight for Ghana Stock Exchange companies. The Ghana Stock Exchange comprises 38 companies in 9 sectors. The largest sector is the financials, consisting of 15 companies, followed by consumer staples sector with 8 companies. The total market capitalization of the Ghana Stock Exchange is 69 billion. Although ESG disclosure guidelines have not been formally adopted in the country, the overall ESG disclosure in the market is relatively immature, and the recent release of S1 and S2 disclosure standard by International Sustainability Standard Board provide direction and stewardship for Ghana Stock Exchange companies. Risk Insight provide a baseline of the current reporting of the companies in Ghana Stock Exchange. This allows for companies to improve and create business transformation through the strategy settings for a period of time based on empirical evidence. The data provide the board of directors and the leadership of the company a dashboard of strengths and weaknesses for future reporting and transparency. Now, let me guide you through the data, enabling us to explore the ESG landscape in Ghana and gain valuable insight into the sustainability practices of listed companies in the country. The E factor, which represents the environmental element of ESG, holds significant importance for listed company to report on. It reflects a company's commitment to sustainability practices, responsible resources, and mitigation environment risk. Reporting on the E factor allows companies to demonstrate their environmental stewardship and contribute to a more sustainable future. In the table presented, you may note that not all the companies have reported their ESG performance for the year 2022. However, we have strived to rate every listed company in Ghana and Botswana based on the available data. Our commitment to transparency and accuracy to ensure that the rating we provide are reliable and insightful. Let me guide you through the result of 2022. Upon close examination, you will notice that only a limited number of companies in the consumer staples and energy sectors have reported on the environmental element of ESG. However, it is encouraging to observe that consumer staples, energy, and materials sectors have consistently reported ESG metrics over the course of 3 years. This demonstrates a strong emphasis on integrating ESG practices within these sectors. On the other hand, despite being the sector within the highest number of companies, the financial sectors, lack specific ESG data. This observation indicates a potential need for increased transparency and reporting on the ESG initiatives within the sector. By addressing this gap, financial institutions can enhance their ESG performance and strengthen their commitment to sustainable practices. There are 7 sectors that haven't reported any environmental element. The S factors play a crucial role in assessing how a company manages social inclusivity and social reporting within its operation and how it will contribute to the society. Effective management of social factors significantly impact a company's overall reputation, planned initiatives, talent management, and sustainable growth. In comparison to the environmental disclosure highlighted in the previous slide, we have observed that social maturity or social disclosure within the Ghana Stock Exchange is relatively higher. There is still room for improvement in this area. By further enhancing social disclosure practices, companies can strengthen their commitment to social responsibility, foster inclusive work environments, and enhance their overall impact on society. ESG GPS analysis reveals that there is a total of 51,000 individual employees across the 9 sectors for the year 2022, among the companies that have already reported, with the majority of employees concentrated in the financial sector. When examining the gender diversity of all companies within the exchange, the average percentage of female employees out of the total workforce across all the sectors is approximately 38%. Notably, the financials and the communication services sector surpassed this average with a female representation exceeding 40%. It is important to acknowledge that the number of employees reported for 2021 versus 2022 is influenced by companies that have yet to disclose their data. Therefore, the figures presented are subject to change as more companies reported their information. We have also observed encouraging improvement in reporting. As you can see from the table, there has been a notable increase in the number of companies reporting on the S factor. A specific area of progress is evidenced in the reporting of total donation. In 2022, 8 companies from the financial sector reported their total donation, showcasing a substantial increase compared to only 1 company in 2021. This shift demonstrates a growing recognition among companies of the importance of disclosure their social impact, including their contribution to charitable causes and community development. ESG GPS considers numerous governance materiality factors encompassing a comprehensive set of over 50 variables that our disclosure tool measures and monitors. Today, for the sake of time, I will highlight the significance of board independency as one of the key materiality factors. Board independence play a critical role in shaping risk management practices and strengthening the 3 lines of defense within organization. By having an independent board, company can benefit from diverse perspective, robust decision-making process, and effective oversight of risk-related matters. In examining the independence of board across sectors in Ghana, the materials and energy sector stand out as having the most independent board. This suggests that these sectors prioritize strong corporate governance practices, which can contribute to improve risk management and overall organizational resilience. From the extensive insight provided by ESG GPS for Ghana, it is evidence that the country is still in the early stage of its ESG journey. However, despite the challenges, there is a noteworthy aspect to celebrate the country's low carbon emission contribution. During the year 2021, Ghana contributed less than 2% to the total carbon emission for Africa. This relatively low carbon footprint positions Ghana favorably in terms of environmental impact and sustainability efforts. It reflects a positive starting point and sets the stages for further advancement in ESG practices. To capitalize on this advantage, it's become the responsibility of leadership to prioritize transparency and disclosure of ESG risks and opportunities. By doing so, Ghana can potentially harness the benefit of carbon credits and enhance its overall image on the global stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I have provided you with a glimpse into the cadence of our ESG GPS model and some high-level results. If you are interested and you would like to explore our range of products and services further, we will be delightful to assist you. Please do not hesitate to contact us at info@riskinsight.co.za.
Coming up next, we have Thapelo Theole, the Chief Executive Officer at the Botswana Stock Exchange.
Good day, everyone, and thanks for attending this session between Botswana Stock Exchange, Risk Insight, and Ghana Stock Exchange. I think it is our pleasure to start work with Risk Insight to look at generally the landscape of ESG, which is a subject that is really on the Botswana Stock Exchange strategic focus for a number of years now. We come a long way in terms of dealing with sustainability issues as Botswana Stock Exchange, and therefore I think we've now bring in of the Risk Insight. I think we are bringing in a matrix in terms of ratings, which is going to be very crucial for development of our market. And as Botswana Stock Exchange, we've had a number of initiatives that deals with sustainability, that deals with ESG, and therefore I think this is just an additional measure for us to add to development of the capital markets in Botswana. And I think our partnership with a world-class rating institution that uses a very advanced rating matrix like Risk Insights, I think is going to be far much beneficial for our companies, for our market, and also for the general investors at large, because I think the methodology that they are using is quite robust, and therefore I think investors will be able to see how they can judge the companies in terms of ESG. And also further, I think it will be very crucial because it now brings in a different perspective in terms of companies being able to assess themselves in terms of how they are doing against the matrix. And therefore, I think it's a good thing that they are rated, they are able to now look through the rating matrix and see which areas they are doing well and then which areas need their attention. And I think at Botswana Stock Exchange is something that we've been working on for quite some time. And we've been working in terms of developing sustainable finance due to a lot of initiatives that we have carried through. There are a number of partnerships which I can go on and on to mention them in terms of what we are doing to actually look at the sustainability, the ESG, the introduction of green bonds, which we are spearheading among the SADC region, and also the general technical expertise by various institutions that we continue to bring into the Botswana market. And therefore, I think I would like to take this opportunity and pleasure to really welcome Risk Insight to be partnering with Botswana Stock Exchange and coming into the Botswana market to offer this opportunity to market participants. One of the things that we've been doing is also to look at our rules and requirements, listing requirements, in order to really push forward advocacy in terms of ESG. Of course, for the stage of development of our market, some of the initiatives are going to start off being very voluntary as we move towards the long-term enforcement in terms of disclosure requirements. But because we are still on is just disclosure, which is still voluntary in the ESG space. But what we have seen over a period of years is that there have been a lot of initiatives in this field, rightfully so, because I think a lot of African markets still needs capacity building in this respect. And I think capacity building only becomes relevant when we now have institutions like Risk Insights that come into being to really assess the level of developments in the market with respect to ESG and with regard to the ratings. And therefore, I think with those few remarks, I'm happy and looking forward to a very fruitful partnership between us, ESG, and we really like the work that they are doing throughout the continent in terms of capacity building, in terms of ratings, and also in terms of providing some networks and collaborations in this aspect. With those few remarks, I wish everybody to enjoy this session. I thank you.
Coming up next, we have Kunal Kalyan, Head of ESG Equity Ratings at Risk Insights.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the ESG GPS launch for Botswana and Ghana. Today, I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of the state of ESG disclosure for Botswana. The exchange consists of 30 companies, which are categorized into 10 sectors, with a total market cap of around 391 billion pula. The largest being the mining sector and the property sector with 6 companies each, followed by the retail and wholesale sector that has 5 companies. In terms of market cap, the mining sector accounts for approximately 84% of total. The financial services sector, together with banking, accounts for roughly 10%. These main sectors continue to play a significant role in Botswana's economic growth. Using public, mandatory, and voluntary disclosure together with new sentiments, ESG GPS has consolidated the ESG disclosure information for all 30 companies listed on the stock exchange. Disclosure guidelines and regulations are fluid, and Botswana is in the process of examining its disclosure guidelines for the exchange. It is evident that ESG disclosure in Botswana appears to be immature for now, but with the release of S1 and S2 standards by the ISSB last month, the market is likely to see a rise in disclosure on sustainability-related risks and opportunities in future reporting periods, as companies will need to consider all stakeholders that impacts on the cost of capital, the cost of funds, and conscious leadership. Let me navigate you through the data. Environmental criteria assesses a company's conduct as a custodian of the environment and includes renewable energy consumption, carbon emissions, water consumption, waste, and the preservation of natural resources through environmental policies. Environmental disclosure takes into account all natural capital consumed and impacts a company both internally and externally. ESG GPS has synthesized the disclosure on these key environmental factors for the Botswana Stock Exchange. Although this slide demonstrates a slight improvement from 2021 to 2022 for certain sectors like retail and wholesale, and banking, it is evident that environmental reporting is minimal for the market as a whole, and therefore is an important area to focus on to attract impact capital for the country. Although disclosure on natural capital for listed companies across the globe is fluid and environmental KPIs are yet to be determined, reporting on such pertinent factors are widely accepted as disclosure measurements for the E in ESG. It is indicative of the environmental risk mitigation strategies in place and can be used as an estimation of the ESG maturity of an institution. Social criteria assesses a company's ability to manage relationships with its employees, suppliers, customers, and the community as a whole. This takes into account double and triple materiality. Some key social data points include community involvement and investment through CSR initiatives, diversity and inclusivity practices, employee development through training, employee well-being, as well as human capital policies. ESG GPS reflects a higher level of reporting on social factors when compared to environmental reporting in Botswana. For 2022, approximately 50% of companies report the gender diversity percentage of their workforce, while 97% of companies disclose representation at board level. Regarding other diversity and inclusivity statistics, only 17% of companies reported on the number of disabled individuals, as well as the percentage of youth employed in 2022. This is a concern given the high level of youth unemployment in the country, which was close to 38% for 2022. This type of disclosure may assist policy setting by addressing high levels of youth unemployment in the country. On average, ESG GPS shows that the gender diversity of listed companies in Botswana for 2022 was roughly 46% at an employee level and 23% at board level. The majority of companies reported on the level of investment in training as well as community investment through donations. This translates to an average of around 5.8 million and 14.2 million pula respectively. It is worth noting that donations increased nearly twofold from 2021 to 2022. Governance disclosure provides insights into a company's leadership, its internal policies and controls, board independence, compliance, and shareholder rights. ESG GPS data reflects that most of the companies listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange have strong reporting on governance metrics. For example, around 93% of companies reported on their board independence level for 2022, of which 56% of board members are independent. Around 90% of companies reported their board and committee meeting attendance information, which translates to an average of 98 and 97% for 2022, respectively, and is an indication of the level of board members' commitment to the organization. Our data also shows that 87% of companies have at least 3 governance policies disclosed to the public. Companies on the Botswana Stock Exchange reflect strong adoption of governance practices which, in general, allows boards to act effectively and in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders. The leadership of companies, together with the board of directors, will need to start adopting ESG principles into their reporting standards. The insights I've provided you gives a high-level synopsis of ESG data that is disclosed by listed companies in Botswana. Although the disclosure is low when compared to other African countries, the country has an added advantage given that it contributed less than 1% to the total carbon emissions for Africa during 2021. This, by default, means that the listed companies in Botswana have low carbon emissions. It remains the responsibility of government and leadership to assist listed companies with their disclosure of social and natural capital indicators to benefit from impact investing and comparing companies in Botswana to companies in the same sector of other countries across the globe based on carbon footprint. Thank you for listening, and should you wish to learn more about how Botswana compares to the rest of Africa or to gain more information on our product offering, please visit our website at riskinsights.co.za or you can email us at info@riskinsights.co.za. Thank you.
Next up, we have Taiwa Ben Ahmed, the CEO at Sanlam Life Insurance Ghana.
I bring you greetings from Sanlam. My name is Taiwa Ben Ahmed and I am the CEO of Sanlam Life Insurance Ghana Ltd. Thank you, Rich Insight, for the opportunity to be part of this very important launch. Indeed, I am excited to be part of this launch and to be associated with Risk Insights for the timely initiative to drive sustainability of listed companies in Ghana and Botswana to ensure long-term value to all stakeholders, our environment and society as a whole. Let me first congratulate Risk Insights for being the first Black woman-owned experience data science boutique with key focus on ESG in Africa, and for the many awards you have earned, including being the winner of the Sustainable Investments Awards for being Africa's ESG Data Provider of the Year 2022 by Environmental Finance, and winner of the Excellence in Agile Business Governance in 2020 by the World Economic Forum in the New Champion Community Awards. By your various awards and recognition, you, Risk Insight, have demonstrated capacity to support listed companies to drive sustainable operating model and business leadership that embed ESG in decisions to ensure growth ambitions are underpinned by sustainability and not just short-term gains or profitability. In today's rapidly changing global village, threats and risks emerge daily that could derail or threaten an organization's sustainability goals. Sustainability, therefore, has become a strategic imperative for a listed company to be future ready. The environmental challenges, including climate changes, deforestation, land degradation, air and water pollution, among others, as well as social challenges the world faces today, are complex and urgent, and Ghana and Botswana are not exempted. The skill set and composition of boards with sufficient independent non-executive directors, board committees, board charters, board evaluation, board training, control environment, compliance and risk management policies, delegation of authority policy, as well as other relevant updated corporate policies are among the key components of the governance pillar of ESG. The launch of the ESG GPS AI rating tool in Ghana and Botswana for listed companies is a strategically key enabler to build future-ready businesses that consider the broader impact of their operating model on the environment and society, whilst governance excellence is upheld to win now and in the long term. This is critical to ensure that the pursuit of profitability does not blind leadership on the impact of their businesses on the environment, people, and how business is conducted. The severe banking sector crisis in Ghana between August 2017 and January 2020 led to the revocation of the licenses of more than 400 financial institutions by the Central Bank of Ghana. The central bank enforced measures to help restore the stability and resilience of the financial system in Ghana. The shortcomings that were observed in Ghana's banking sector crisis included, among others, poor corporate governance, poor risk management, regulatory lapses, undercapitalization, high non-performing loans, unlawful transactions, and many others. These are the matters that ESG covers, and the business case for the launch of ESG GPS AI tool in Ghana is fully established by the recent banking sector crisis in Ghana. On the other hand, Ghana recorded 32% growth in gold production in 2022 and recovered the top spot position from South Africa as the largest gold producing country on the African continent, according to the president of the Chamber of Mines. Great growth in gold production. It is, however, important to look at the impact of gold production growth on the Ghanaian environment, water bodies, drinking water, farmlands, and livelihood of the Ghanaian people as a whole. ESG considers growth from sustainability perspective to ensure protection of our environment, planet, and society as we grow. Insurance penetration in Ghana hovers around 1%, though the insurance market in Ghana is made up of life and general insurance only. Among the major challenges impacting the low insurance penetration in Ghana is trust, confidence, and awareness of insurance. The launch of ESG GPS AI tool has the potential to improve trust and confidence in insurance, not only in Ghana and Botswana, but Africa as a whole. It will interest you to know that the purpose of Sanlam is to empower generations to be financially confident, secure, and prosperous. As the biggest non-bank financial services group in Africa, the commitment of Sanlam in its purpose considers the need to build strong, sustainable business that embed ESG principles in our operating model to deliver on our purpose. Consequently, we have committed to 4 core values, including the value of care, integrity, collaboration, and innovation in our DNA, and ensures that we build strong, sustainable business that enables our clients and partners to go about their business with confidence. As a business with over 100 years experience with brand promise of live with confidence, sustainability is critical to us. Our integrity value enjoins us to be unwavering in our pursuit to do the right thing and resolute in our commitment to what is good for all stakeholders, whilst our value of care commits us to serve with empathy and consideration, so everything we do leave a lasting impact and legacy with our clients, people, partners, and the communities we serve. We have identified ESG-sensitive business areas and investments, and we are clear on what to support and those we stay away from. Several trends are shaping ESG strategies, including rising global warming, induced severe weather events, pandemics like the COVID-19, among others. Divesting from industries with unethical practices and human rights violations will minimize indirect social impact, whilst encouraging investments to prioritize ESG. At Sanlam, we firmly believe that everyone deserves an equal chance to live a better life, for which reason we have focused on expanding insurance services to reach the underserved communities, particularly in the informal sector, to enhance financial inclusion and help address social inequality, as many of the listed companies do. The Botswana Stock Exchange has guidance for listed companies on ESG reporting information to investors, which is a voluntary tool for issuers. The Ghana Stock Exchange as well has ESG guidance manual. It will interest you to know that the Ghana and the Botswana Stock Exchanges have recently joined the African Exchange Linkage Project, which among others will improve trading volumes in these exchanges. Consequently, the Ghana and the Botswana stock exchanges therefore appreciate the role ESG plays in driving sustainability of listed companies. And the ESG GPS AI tool of Risk Insight should be an important platform to enable the Ghana and Botswana stock exchanges to generate appropriate, reliable data on listed companies to measure and rate their progress on ESG. The opportunities in ESG factors present good sustainable growth potential for listed and unlisted companies that embrace ESG in its operating model and leadership. As listed companies, key stakeholders are keen about ESG, and we must take this launch seriously and improve our disclosures on ESG whilst we encourage regulators to consider ESG rating of companies as part of industry performance metrics to support the drive for sustainable business. Welcome Risk Insight to Ghana and Botswana. As you know, the business of insurance is founded on risk. Consequently, I see ESG as a business sustainability risk, and the ESG GPS AI rating tool is a great mitigation opportunity to address the ESG sustainability risk and optimize the opportunities ESG presents to enable stakeholders to live with and go about their business with confidence. Let's embrace and utilize the ESG GPS AI tool from Risk Insight. Thank you for your attention.
Coming up next, we have Rick Tilwen, the Head Responsible Investment Ecosystems, Benelux and Africa at PRI.
Thank you, Risk Insights, for having me here today. Thank you for putting this event together and going above and beyond in progressing the ESG disclosure landscape. I would like to mark this occasion, being the launch of the ESG disclosure tool in Ghana and Botswana, to direct some words towards you, the audience, being from the investment community, public, private sector, local or internationally. It's quite exciting to have you here because responsible investment is a topic that gets much attention and it deserves much attention. It's good to see you here. The role of data and sustainability information cannot be overemphasized. I will get to that point in a bit. My name is Rick Thewe. I'm a head of responsible investment ecosystems at PRI, and in my day-to-day work, I engage and support investors across a range of jurisdictions and asset classes on progressing their responsible investment approaches, policy, and activities. Therefore, I work with asset owners, investment managers, and service providers in this financial sector, including Risk Insights team. For those of you who don't know us, the PRI, we are the Principles for Responsible Investment. We were convened by the UN in 2006, when then Secretary General Kofi Annan invited a group of large institutional investors to join the development of what became the 6 Principles for Responsible Investment. These principles are now underwritten by close to 5,500 signatories across the globe, from Chile to China, from VC to sovereign wealth funds, and everything in between. In its essence, the principles are about integrating ESG issues in investment decisions and in ownership activities, seeking disclosures on issues on ESG issues by these investees, collaboration, and reporting on responsible investment activities by our signatories. As you might have noticed, ESG disclosures is one of those principles, and for good reasons. But let's set the stage. Where's responsible investment today as an industry? Where's the movement going? It is hard to disagree with the idea that responsible investment is mainstream nowadays. It is not without critique as an industry, but is implemented across the globe. These 5,500 signatories of the PRI manage about $121 trillion AUM, which is about half of the world's pool of institutional capital. So it is mainstream. Last year, we rolled out an extensive survey called PRI in the Changing World to get the latest insights from a signatory base. Where do they see responsible investment now and in the future, and what role PRI could play in this process? We acknowledge, as the PRI, we are a big tent, we have different mandates, different circumstances investors operate in. But we do see some commonalities that I want to share with you to set the stage. These can either fuel your ambitions or the ambition of the organization, or they can support your progress. They might as well just provide some context on responsible investment. With the survey, PRI in Changing World, we went out to our signatories and asked them, what do you think responsible investment is about today for your organization? We asked them, is it about managing ESG risks? Is it about managing ESG risk and identifying sustainability outcomes? Or is it a combination of these two and then also acting on sustainability outcomes? In those three buckets, it was about 30% of the signatories said responsible investment is about managing ESG risk, 30% said managing ESG risk and identifying sustainability outcomes, 44% said it's also about taking action. Looking at the future, so where's responsible investment going, we see this final group swelling to 63%. There's a majority across signatory type, asset owners and investment managers across regions that acknowledges responsible investment in the future is about taking action on sustainability outcomes. That being said, very important, still 30% of our signatories do say managing ESG risk is the sole dimension of responsible investment. This can be especially true for newcomers to ESG, newcomers to responsible investment, be it from new fund managers, be it from new jurisdiction and markets. So at the PRI, we want to support progress from our signatories on responsible investment through direct support with resources and tools, by offering a platform to collaborate, but also to have them influence systemic financial risks across the sector. Coming back to the here and now, the role of ESG disclosure and ESG information. I've mentioned it before in this small presentation, and our signatories mentioned it a lot. ESG information, disclosures, and regulation all rely on data. At the PRI, one of our most recent research projects from our Sustainable Financial Systems team looked at understanding the data needs of responsible investors. With this research, we pulled together PRI's Investor Data Needs Framework, which offers a structure to identify decision-useful corporate sustainability data for responsible investors. Ultimately, we found that in order for data to be decision useful, it must be available and of sufficient quality to be relevant in the investment decision-making process, or to investor reporting obligation, because as mentioned, right, regulation is coming across the globe. We've released this framework and our research on our website, umpri.org, so please have a look after this session. What does this framework cover? And I want to stress these three main requirements that we found in our research. First one being data must be available. Second one, data must be of sufficient quality. Third one, data must be relevant. What do we mean with data must be available? That it means that data must be produced either by companies or service provider and needs to be accessible to investors to use in their processes. Second point, data must be of sufficient quality. So data must be a faithful representation of what the company intends to report on. It needs to be comparable across dimensions, geographies, timeframes. Thirdly, it needs to be also verifiable by investors through transparent disclosure and third-party verification. Final requirement is data must be relevant. This means that it must be relevant for investors' responsible investment processes or to produce these investors' reporting requirements. This is defined by using a relevance matrix that we also published, and which specifies requirements for the data to be decision useful. So with this idea of what data needs exist out there, we really want to promote and support developments like the ESG disclosure tool, especially to showcase that investors need and require relevant data in their decision-making processes and in their investment-making processes. And with that note, I would like to thank you and good luck with the rest of the event.
Next up, we have Louis Roy, CEO and President at Optel Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to participate in this discussion on how Africa will address the global warming and reduce its carbon emission overall. We see a huge trend currently on the market from Europe and North America to have the measure of the carbon emission along the global value chain. Because you need to understand that a product, let's say, that we buy in Europe, like a chocolate product that we buy in Europe, come with a carbon footprint that is mainly due to the upstream operation. The upstream operation is the agriculture practice, the first transformation, and of course the logistics. Once the products arrive at the plant in Europe, it doesn't produce anymore a lot of carbon footprint. The same thing with metals and minerals. There's a huge carbon emission due to the extraction, the first transformation, and then it arrives to the smelting of the product, and this is also huge. So we talk here about the scope 1, 2, and 3. So the scope 1 is the emission, the process of a specific company. The scope 2 is the energy they use. And the scope 3, it's all upstream and downstream. So we're going to talk a lot about the upstream because that's what will impact a lot the global value chain of the stakeholder in Africa that are exporting good into Europe or North America. So there are multiple regulations. The regulation, first, they want to have a precise declaration of the carbon emission along the value chain. So they first will need to measure, use the proper tool to measure precisely, because on the other way, there is a regulation in Europe that is against the greenwashing, where there is huge penalty of companies that are declaring the wrong carbon emission or the wrong greenhouse claim that they do. So there'll be a lot of scrutiny on the data that for the measurement of the carbon emission along all, from the field or the mine, the transformation, the logistics. So this data will need to be provided to those different markets. And it's okay because we need to measure to be able to manage. So if we don't have a proper measurement of the carbon emission, how are we going to start reducing it? So the first step is going to be measuring and declaring. The second step, which we see probably in 3 years, will be now a forced reduction. So to be able to enter a market, you need to be able to show that you have reduced, that you have lower carbon products, lower carbon cacao, lower carbon coffee. That means a different agricultural practice and a more efficient supply chain, because again, waste is increasing the carbon footprint of a product. The main driver that we see currently as a regulation, there is the CSRD, so the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive that is coming in the coming weeks. That will really require a specific criteria on the declaration of what's happening on the supply chain, upstream supply chain. So this will impact over 50,000 companies in Europe along the next 4 years, and enforce here a more stringent data and declaration on the different activity along the supply chain. Another one that is not directly related to the carbon emission measurement, but it is pretty stringent, is the anti-deforestation. As we know, deforestation increase carbon emission, greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. We need to slow down deforestation. And Europe and some states in US are currently discussing about that, is to reduce and eventually block incoming agricultural product or forestry product that will come into those countries, an economic bloc that need to be deforestation free. So the EUDR is a regulation that required the proof of everything that comes in Europe. Where does it come from? The precise geolocalization of the field, so there can be a double check that there was no deforestation there. So again, we're entering an era of data, of declaration that will be verified, because if a company in Europe make a declaration about a claim that cannot be proven, it's going to be a risk, a legal risk for the company. So Africa supply chain need to adapt to those future requirements. And I personally believe, of course, it is challenging, but I believe we need to reduce the carbon emission if we want to have a livable product, a livable world, and again, low carbon product. So we're going to need to adapt the industrial process, the agricultural process. We're going to need to improve efficiency along the way. And more important, we're going to also need to improve the accountability of the different stakeholders. And how are we going to achieve that? Well, data is going to be the key. And I like the approach of risk insight, which is gathering data for public trading company to create this visibility on what are the claims and how can we trust the data. This is a similar step that will happen with more granular data, like Uptel does, capturing granular data on the different processes. Then that will be after reported by company, and that will be double checked by Risk Insight to manage the risk of the declaration. So my recommendation is really look at your operation, look at your value chain, look at the highest carbon footprint emission hotspot, and then work on it. Of course, you will find and you will understand why a lot of countries in Africa are working on replacing fossil energy by renewable energy, because this has a huge impact on the carbon emission. This visibility on all the different activities along your supply chain will improve, offer an opportunity to improve the supply chain and the process. Let's take an example of the agriculture process. Agriculture process will need to improve to improve the yield of the different farmer. So now we'll need country will need to get in contact with their smallholder to help them organize and become more sustainable. But at the same time, there will be an opportunity to improve their yield, so improve their revenue. The same thing on the mining sector. There'll be more scrutiny. And again, like in any company, when you have the measure, you can improve. So we're entering into this new world. It can be challenging, but it is the future of any industrialization and any transition to a more viable economy required a certain form of measure, reporting, and control, and allow us to improve altogether. So this is a great opportunity to reinforce Africa industrial sector while position it as a more sustainable. It's going to be challenging, but we have to look also at the opportunity toward that. So we're here to help. Thank you.
Next up, we have Irene Kano, Chief Executive Officer at Greenco ESG Consultants.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me a great pleasure to join you at this historical launch of the first ESG GPS model in Ghana and Botswana developed by Risk Insights. I'm pleased to give this keynote address on gender-based transformation and its implication for Africa, all of which are key to environment, social, and governance ESG-related matters. In our case, in Africa, gender transformation holds significant implication for the continent's social, economic, and political development. Indeed, while there has been growth in women-led companies, particularly in recent years, however, they still face challenges that keep them in embryonic stage. Various factors that contribute to this situation include limited access to financial resources and capital for women entrepreneurs in Africa, the lack of collateral, discriminating lending practices, and unequal access to investment opportunities, making it difficult for women to secure funding to start and scale their businesses. African cultural and society norms continue to play a significant role in limiting women's participation in entrepreneurship. Traditional and gender roles and expectations often restrict women's access to education, networks, and business opportunities. It's therefore crucial that we address these cultural barriers and promote gender equality in all spheres of society for enabling the growth of women-led companies. Furthermore, the lack of supportive policies and infrastructure poses additional obstacles. inadequate business regulations, limited access to business development services, and a lack of targeted support programs tailored to women entrepreneurs hamper their ability to thrive. However, despite these challenges, there are some positive developments. By addressing these barriers and providing the necessary support, Africa can unlock the immense potential of women-led companies, driving economic growth, job creation, and social progress across the continent. Today, there is widespread acknowledgement that women's empowerment and gender equality are essential to environmental, social, and economic progress. We need to foster more inclusive organizations with female representation at various levels, including the workplace, management level, C-suite, and the board. A strategic approach is essential. As we further the growth of women-led companies, it's necessary to continue addressing these challenges. In large part, the solutions require gender equality and true empowerment of women and girls. Let me mention a few strategic approaches that provide a clear focus and hold organizations accountable for progress. Creating inclusive policies and practices that promote equal opportunity, like gender-neutral recruitment and promotion processes, flexi work arrangements, and family-friendly policies. Fostering a supportive work culture of inclusivity, respect, and empowerment within the organization. Organizations should encourage open dialogue on gender-related issues, provide diversity, inclusive training, and establish resource networks to support women and leadership development. Actively identifying and nurturing high potential female talent within the organization, as well as ensuring they access opportunities that prepare them for leadership roles. By establishing diverse and inclusive boards through board composition, developing a transparent nomination and selection process for board position, and intentionally seeking out qualified women. And finally, actively engaging leadership commitment from the top leadership to champion gender diversity and inclusion. However, through concerted efforts from governments, civil society, and international partners, progress is being made in achieving gender equality and transforming societies for the better across Africa. It is important for organizations to promote female representation as it fosters empathy, inclusive thinking, collaboration, fairness, and challenges gender stereotypes. By employing diversity, organizations can create a more equitable and dynamic environment that benefits individuals, teams, and the overall success of the organization. We recognize that no country has yet achieved full gender parity. However, the top 9 countries are mainly from Europe, having closed at least 80% of the gender gap. Sub-Saharan Africa's gender parity score is the 6th highest among the 8 regions at 68.2%, ranking above Southern Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. However, progress in the region has been uneven. Today in Kenya, we are seeing increasing successful stories in the boardroom statistics. Gender diversity stands at 36% in comparison to the global average of women holding board positions, which stands at 23.3%. We must recognize that realizing the rights, well-being, and human development of all people, men and women, young and old, rich and poor, and not only the achievement of economic growth is the hallmark of successful and sustainable societies. We need a concerted effort to address the underinvestment in gender equality. From C-suite women leaders to grassroots civil society organizations, underinvestment stifles women's voices and further progress. This is a problem for which solutions exist: the meaningful and full inclusion of women. I wish to therefore commend Risk Insight in hosting this launch and creating awareness in the space of ESG on the African continent. I thank you.
Thank you for being with us today and joining Africa Moment towards sustainability. ESG GPS for Botswana and Ghana capital markets aims to assist in navigation in ESG data for all stakeholders in a consistent, reliable, and transparent manner, thereby fostering a more circular and socially inclusive future for all. This has been such an honor for me on behalf of my team at Risk Insights to open this event. But all good things come to an end. So let me say goodbye for now, and I hope to see you all in the near future through the subscription to ESG GPS. Stay in touch, and God bless.